At the heart of every financial scandal, there is a brave whistleblower who brings the scandal to light. And with every such case, the whistleblower remains the least celebrated. He is seen as a nuisance by the system, and like an unwanted cockroach at a dinner table, he is splattered with a blow so heavy that his story never sees the light of day. In 1993, David Munyake, then a clerk at Central Bank of Kenya, whistleblew about the infamous Golden Bag scandal. Not only did he lose his job, but he died uncelebrated and poor. In 2004, the former PS for Ethics and Governance, John Gidongo, told the world about Anglo-leasing, the then NACS government minister's scam because it was their time to eat. But he had to do it while in exile. He couldn't fight the scandal while in the same government. It wouldn't be any different for Sylvester Kiptoo at Egerton University. It was in the same year, 2004, when a young man working as a computer programmer at Egerton University in Njoro blew the cover over various financial scams at the university. Sylvester Kiptoo, of course, knew he was no match for the forces at play, but he fought valiantly, bore the bruises of the people he was implicating, and watched helplessly as every authority he depended on failed him. However, the seeds of financial malpractice had been planted, and today the fruits bloom for all to see. Egerton University is at the verge of collapse. Employees and suppliers of utilities go for months unpaid, and some courses have been discontinued in order to cut costs. This is the story of Sylvester Kiptoo and the grand financial scam at Egerton University. You are watching the Financial Crimes Podcast. Sylvester Kiptoo's stars aligned in 1997 when, as a fresh computer science graduate, he got a job at Egerton University. He was happy to join the more than 2,000 employees at the institution to support their computing and programming department. In the late 90s, few institutions had computers, and those that were adopting them required skilled manpower, which was scarce. Kiptoo's first task at the university, therefore, was to streamline and computerize the human resource data. He combed through hundreds of files, identifying each department and categorizing each employee under that department. He was also responsible for creating the first automated payroll system for the huge institution. He had a small office in the busy administration block. There was nothing fancy except for the wall decor of an old calendar that hung near the door. He had also accessorized his desk with a Kalijin fly whisk that he had gotten from his grandfather. On his desk was a huge HP computer that at the time had the specifications fit for a computer programmer. 512 MB RAM with a 1 GB hard disk. It had the latest Windows 98 operating system and Office 98. He had Internet Explorer 4. He saved his work in the numerous diskettes that he normally kept under lock and key. By 2002, Kiptoo had fully settled into the role as well as settled socially. He had close working relationships with the then Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ezra Maritim, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor in charge of Administration and Finance, Professor James Twitoek. He worked alongside colleagues like Nelly Tuwei and others in the computer department, but his close buddies were the accountant, one Kenneth Ntongondu, and a senior lecturer, Dr. Jitile Naituli. He worked hard and was saving diligently. He had a plan to study masters in computer science at Makerere University. It was one evening while Kiptoo was in an elevated debate with Ken and Naituli that they discussed the level of nepotism at the university. It was until his friends started teasing him that he started thinking of the matter seriously. They said, "Had you not been from the VC's tribe, you probably would not have gotten this job." The next day, he filtered through his Excel file of the staff at the institution and started seeing what they were discussing as true. For every 5 employees, 3 were from one tribe. And it was upon a closer look at that he discovered that some junior employees in the department were in job groups higher than his. When he brought this finding to his 2 friends, Ken and Naituli, they all agreed that these were things that they knew were happening, only that they did not have evidence. So they set forth to seek the evidence. Kenneth, the accountant, was to provide the list of employees in the payroll. Sylvester was to countercheck the list of employees that he had compiled against the payroll list. Dr. Naituli would help them with the research and compilation of data. And from 2002 to 2004, the 3 gentlemen embarked on an investigative mission. Meanwhile, Sylvester was also doing his application at Makerere to start his master's in 2004. The 3 thought they were unearthing what they thought was a small speck perpetrated by a few. Instead, they found themselves digging out a log that had the top brass in the university's administration involved. The evidence implicated his immediate boss, Professor James Tuitoek. The payroll was his pet, taken care of by his close associates, and delivered to the bank by his orders. But it was the diskette containing the salary details that Sylvester, Ken, and Dr. Naituli had intercepted, and in it, they found more than 600 ghost workers earning from 25,000 to 150,000 shillings per month. In a month, Egerton University was losing 5 million shillings, which was being pocketed by the DVC and other unknown people. Armed with this sensitive information, Sylvester took the advice of Dr. Naituli and wrote a letter to the Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority. Here is the letter. Corruption at Egerton University. Being employees of Egerton University, we wish to report official corruption perpetrated by some senior managers of this university. There is an elaborate scheme of corruption involving the DVC A&F, that is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration and Finance, Personnel and Computer Section, where the list of staff serving in the university is falsified to enable the university to draw extra money from the treasury. In this scheme, the concerned officers prepare 2 separate lists of staff, one for the actual payment used internally and another false one that is sent to the government authorities, for instance, the Commission for Higher Education, the Treasury, and the Ministry, whenever requested, in order to illegally and fraudulently obtain approval of monies to the university. This external list has a bloated number of employees, ghost workers, of about 2765, while the actual list is containing about 2135. We also wish to point out that this kind of fraud has been going on for more than 6 years and has managed to escape the scrutiny of internal and external auditors, both of whom never audit the university payroll vis-a-vis the actual personnel records. It is even suspected that some people who applied for jobs here but never took up the assignment are included in the payroll for a substantial number of months and later on terminated. Such a case occurred sometimes in the year 2000 and went undetected, but was a subject of investigation on allegations made by a member of staff on the in charge of computer section. The member of staff, one Lynette Sibia, was then transferred and the payroll processing became a closed secret in the office. It is unknown who sanctions the fraud and who benefits from it, but the concerned officers are known. It is unclear whether the internal and external auditors are in this conspiracy or acting in total ignorance under the guise of computer illiteracy. As members of staff stationed in this office, we are privy to information in this scheme because there are instances where we are told to convert all casual employees of the university to permanent status and issue them with fictitious payroll numbers. The ghost workers are placed conveniently on certain groups and given an impression that they actually paid that much every month. This normally happens when the government authorities demand such a report. The letter goes on and on and on, and at the end, it says, "In the spirit of zero tolerance to corruption, I call upon your good office to thoroughly investigate and take due action on the perpetrators of this hidden fraud and malpractice of massive scale. This will not only make Egerton University a better place to work, but also an institution of high moral standing." Signed by Sylvester Kipto, computer programmer, computer section, and Kenneth Ntongondu, the accountant, and copied to the Governance and Ethics Office in the Office of the President. Once it was sent, they all breathed in relief. They trusted the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission to take over the investigation. Sylvester was preparing for a long study leave as he had been accepted at Makerere for his master's. His friends and colleagues were happy for him. But that was just the calm before the storm. A week later, KACC faxed back to the DVC the letter that the three had sent. The letter was sent directly to the first accused suspect. Without minding to protect the whistleblowers, KACC had appended a small note to the fax. Look into this matter. The DVC was both shocked that what he had been hiding for long had finally come to light, but relieved that KACC had passed back the baton to him and had revealed the three whistleblowers. The next morning, the DVC held a secret meeting with his co-conspirators. They wondered the extent to which their cover had been blown, but the DVC assured them that he was in charge and that nothing would change except that he would make the lives of the whistleblowers a living hell. They went through the records of the whistleblowers at the university. The DVC said that they would be demoted and their roles changed. But it was Sylvester Kipto who bore the brunt of this hit. He was demoted, and his junior took his role as the head of computing payroll. He was denied access to his office, but had to report every day and stay where they could see him until 5 p.m. every day. Then his first application for study leave was rejected. He had to wait to go to Makerere. Kipto was a gentleman, soft-spoken and a neat freak. He was the kind that paired his socks after a wash, folded his handkerchief along the edges, and even tucked the edge of the tissue into a duck. It was this gentleness that the DVC mistook for weakness. Kipto was not weak. Instead, he was stubbornly resolved to finish anything that he started. Kipto decided to go further into investigations on the DVC. He dug more dirt and discovered more scams. But this time, instead of writing to the Kenya Anti-Corruption Authority, he chose to write to the PS, Ethics and Governance, in the Office of the President. The second letter had more details on the payroll scandal, complete with bank printouts of the ghost workers and their pays. He also detailed other forms of frauds, as this letter shows below. Reference: Complaint against Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. We wrote a letter under confidential cover dated 13 September 2004 to the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission and copied to your office. The subject of the said letter was the following: 1. existence of ghost workers at Egerton University, estimated to be about 600, payroll manipulation, and other forms of corruption. The KACC received this letter, wrote back to the Vice-Chancellor of Egerton University, asking him to answer the allegations raised and attach the copy of our letter. This action by KACC had the following implications. 1. It jeopardizes our jobs at the university and puts our lives in danger. 2. It can lead to destruction of evidence. And 3. It destroys our confidence in KACC. We would like now to inform you that since writing this letter, we have uncovered further irrefutable evidence that payroll manipulation has in fact been taking place at the Egerton University. We estimate that the government could have lost close to 500 million over the last 10 years as a result of this fraud. We intercepted a payroll diskette on onward transmission to the Standard Bank Nakuru branch. It revealed that the following members of staff receive initially high salaries. The letter continues to list a number of people that are ghost workers and their salaries, and then continues to inform the peers on other forms of fraud. 1. Irregular appointments and promotions. 2. Purchase of items, payment of suppliers, and concludes with, we are therefore writing to request that you order an investigation into these matters. We are prepared to give evidence if called upon to do so. We strongly believe that the government has lost millions through this fraud. We do not believe that the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission will take up these matters seriously, given that senior members of staff at the Commission are interacting regularly with senior Egerton University administrators through the anti-corruption seminars currently being held at the university. Then there was the two that signed, Sylvester Kipto and Kenneth Ntogodo. This time, this letter seemed to have worked. A few days later, detectives raided the university and arrested 7 payroll clerks. However, neither Sylvester, Kenneth the accountant, nor Dr. Naitola were ever called to record a statement. No other investigations were conducted, and within weeks, things seemed to have gone back to normal. The year 2004 ended eventfully, and Sylvester was looking forward to 2005. Despite the gloom surrounding his working conditions, he was looking forward to October, when he would apply again for another study leave to start his master's. The year 2005 started slowly for Sylvester. He would report to the office daily, but he wouldn't access his desk. It was an effort to frustrate him, but he was defiant enough. In the process, he gained many admirers and sympathizers. Some of these were also informers from other departments and campuses. During his free time, Kipto researched the new fraud information he was getting and wrote another letter to the PS Ethics and Governance. Reference: Complaint against Professor James Tuitoek, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Administration and Finance. Following my complaints to KACC and to your office on corruption at Egerton University and subsequent arrest and arraignment of some junior staff at the university, I have faced threats and intimidation from the DVC, Administration and Finance. The DVC appointed Nelly Tuwe to head the salaries computer section, who herself was part of the group arrested. Upon assuming this responsibility, she informed me that she had been instructed by Professor Tuitoek not to allow me to perform any duty in the office until further instructions. Since then, I always report to the office in the morning, do nothing, and I am not allowed to leave until 5 p.m. Additionally, I have since discovered other serious incidences of corruption as follows. 1. Self-sponsored students' fees are being collected outside the university and letters written to the accountant at the town campus, thus allowing the said students to register without paying to the university. Evidence about this fact is on file at the Nakuru town campus, and the university has lost millions through this fraud. 2. Student fees at the main campus in Njoro are received through the cash office, and the collecting receipt books are subsequently destroyed. 3rd, some students with balances collude with the accountants at the students' finance section to illegally write off fees balances by paying a token. 4. Nelly Tuei, head of payroll computer, and Samson Owino, a payroll clerk, are currently operating a credit bureau through the payroll in the name of Sumnell Welfare through that account at the Egerton Circle. This is payroll manipulation, which is both illegal and unethical. And 5, the current investigation is being trivialized by top management, whose primary objective is to cover up themselves from the scam in which they are deeply involved. I'm therefore writing to request the intervention of your office because my job is now at risk. Signed, Sylvester Kipto. Within this, the office of the PS had written to the DVC asking him to investigate and respond to the matter. But in the usual casual way of dismissing these claims, the DVC denied such claims in the following memo. In 2005, it was easy for Kipto's woes to have been diluted by the main event that was happening in Kenya. The better part of the year was filled by constitution referendum campaigns. The news outlets had enough content, and all their resources were geared towards following the campaigns. The sudden resignation of the Ethics and Governance PS, John Gidongo, in 2005 further dented Kipto's hopes of getting justice. The Anglo-leasing scandal was too much on his plate. At Egerton, everything was going on normally. The then Vice-Chancellor was nearing the end of his term, and the mood at the university was slowly turning into that of succession. The DVC, Professor Tuitoek, was one of the front runners to become the new Vice-Chancellor. He seemed well-mannered and connected while lobbying. Deep down, Kipto knew that the DVC would not lift any stone that would threaten to expose him, and the DVC knew that Kipto and his friends were a threat, and he would not rest until he had dealt with them first. In July 2005, Sylvester Kipto was forcibly transferred to Kisii campus, some 200 kilometers from the Njoro campus. Angered by this decision, Kipto wrote another letter as shown. Reference: the persecution of anti-corruption forces at Egerton University. In September 2004, I drew the attention of the nation via the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission to the rampant corruption and fraudulent activities at Egerton University. These activities involved the manipulation of the payroll and the student fees and the incidence of ghost workers at the institution. To my dismay, my letter to the KACC in 2004 was faxed to the university management. This threw my security into serious jeopardy. I, therefore, decided to communicate this concern to the then Permanent Secretary for Ethics and Governance, Mr. John Gidongo. The resultant pressure led to some investigations by the anti-fraud detectives and the accounting firm of Ernst & Young. 4 suspects were then arrested and charged. Even with the half-hearted investigations, it was established that the fraudulent activities had cost the country the sum of 50 million shillings, the money having been wired to individual accounts. Sir, it is now 11 months since I raised the matter, and the fire scene was only burning out, but also the university management is not happy with me. It has chosen to resort to intimidation against me at every opportunity, despite the fact that the University Council acknowledged that fraud had taken place and that the university would reward the whistleblowers. The situation on the ground smells of hatred, suspicion, and intimidation. The letter goes on and on and on, and he notes, to thicken this plot further, I recently received a letter of transfer moving me to Kisii campus, which is 200 kilometers from Njoro campus, and a smear campaign to boot initiated to portray me as a traitor and always at loggerheads with the management. Any visitor to my former office is told I am on my way out of the university and he or she should not associate with me. The perpetrators and the sympathizers claim that the 50 million fraud is just but a waste of time since Egerton University has never won a court battle in the first place. At the end, he says, I, together with my colleagues, took up the challenge by the government to well-meaning citizens to take up the war on corruption. It appears we were terribly mistaken for the same. Government has completely abandoned us. Reformers in public institutions live in constant fear of sacking or even being eliminated. How can we stop the plunder of public resources if those who have the will to do so are haunted by the corrupt troops? I would like to ask your commission to take up this matter and deal with it decisively. Egerton University is a public resource that cannot be left to waste away. Yours faithfully signed, Sylvester Kipto. This was just 1 month before he proceeded to his highly anticipated study leave. He thought he had given the whistleblowing his all, and he just wanted to break for a breath. But fate had other plans. His study leave was cancelled. He was denied permission to go for his further studies. He had now written twice to KACC and twice to the PS for Ethics and Governance, but he had nothing to show for it. The system failed him. He finished the year dejected. 2006 started just like 2005 had ended. Victory to the looters, dejection to the whistleblowers. The DVC Professor James Tuitoek was now running to be the CEO of the university. Kipto tried one last time to warn anyone who would listen. He and his friends wrote this letter to the office of the president. A reference: complaint against Professor Tuitoek's candidature for Vice Chancellor Egerton University. We, the undersigned, having blown the whistle on fraudulent activities at the university perpetuated by the DVC Administration and Finance Professor James Tuitoek, are writing to object to his candidature and possible elevation to the position of Vice Chancellor to the university. Our exposure of the fraud led to the arrest of 4 clerical staff in this department who have since been charged in a court of law for stealing 50 million shillings. Our position is that there was a massive cover-up engineered by the DVC and that there is no way a theft of that magnitude, which we believe to be grossly understated, could have taken place without the knowledge of the DVC. He has since taken the matter very personally and has continued to harass and intimidate us, the undersigned, with irregular and unsolicited transfers and verbal harassment, all of which we have reported to the KACC. We are therefore writing in the spirit of the government's stated policy of zero tolerance on corruption to request that his candidature be revoked until a thorough investigation by KACC is conducted. Yours faithfully, Dr. Gitilia Naituli, Mr. Sylvester Kipto, and Mr. Kenneth Mtongondo. Fortunately for the DVC and fortunately for Kipto, the DVC would prevail and go on to be the Vice Chancellor of Egerton University for 2 terms, that is 10 years from 2006 to 2015. Since then, Egerton University has been teetering on the edge of collapse due to financial difficulties. The unions led by Uasu sounded alarm bells warning of an imminent collapse of the institution. But did anyone listen? As of June 30th, 2019, Egerton had accumulated 1.6 billion shillings in outstanding statutory deductions that is KRA, NSSF, and NHIF, which continue to accumulate every month. She also owes creditors more than 6 billion shillings. As of December 2022, the debt had hit 9 billion shillings. An audit report in 2020 exposed Egerton as an institution that had routinely flouted multiple regulations and resulted in the deep financial crisis arising from alleged fraud and mismanagement. The Inspector General for Corporations, Ms. Theodora Gichana, said that the institution lost millions of shillings due to fraud and incompetence. Although late and without any actions, Sylvester Kiptoo, Kennedy Ntogodu, and Dr. Gitilen Ituli had finally been vindicated. But at what cost and whose loss? This is the Financial Crimes Podcast. Until the next episode, I am Jeff Kafka.